Good morning, students.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, yes. So last class we were discussing about. I think we started with relational algebra concepts. We saw what is a relation. We saw what do we mean by relation, degree of a relation, the different really what do we mean by relation schema. So all that we saw, and then we stopped at I think what is a super key, correct? So we stopped at this point just to give you a quick recap on that. Super key means when we say a default to super key, we are going to consider all the attributes of the table. You consider it as a default super key. All right. Now, when you go for a minimal super key, so that means what is a minimal super key? You try to remove some attributes and then you come up to a level wherein you cannot further remove any attribute and still identify a record uniquely. Am I clear? You go on removing and you come at a point wherein if I remove something further, remove attribute further, then I will not be able to identify a record uniquely. That is where I call it as a minimal super key. Generally, the minimal super key, I told you, minimal super key is nothing but your primary key. Okay, but default super key is not your, it is the set of all the attributes of the table. You call it as the default super key. Now, this is an example here. We discussed this in the last class, but still I just want to give you a recap before we continue. We took the relation as student. Relation means nothing but table. Okay. And then what are the attributes of student? USN, name and address. Now, when I talk of default super key, all this, whatever attributes are there, take everything. Set of all the attributes, I will call it as the default super key. Now, what do we mean by a minimal super key? I try to remove something from this. Let us say I try to remove this address. Okay, what am I left with? I'm left with USN and name. This is also a super key, but it is not the minimal super key. This is still a super key because given the USN and the name, I can still uniquely identify every record. Yes. So this is still a super key. Now, I'll try to remove this name also. Then what will happen? I'm left with only USN. If I remove USN also, if I remove this attribute also, will I be able to uniquely identify the records? No, I'll not be able to identify the records. So I have to retain this USN in order to identify the records uniquely. So which is the key that using which I am going to identify the records? That is what you call it as a minimum. You cannot remove anything further. That is why I call it as minimal super key or key. Generally, if you look into this relation, which is a primary key here, it is USN. Generally, I told you USN is also the minimal super key. Take another example here. Order details is the name of the table. What are the attributes of this table? Order number, item number, quantity. Okay. Now, when I say default super key, what is a default super key? You take all the attributes that are there in the table, collection of all the attributes of the table, I call it as default super key. So order number, item number, quantity, all these are default. Together is a default super key. Now I try to remove some attributes. Let me say I'll try to remove quantity. So what am I left with? Order number, item number. Now, in this particular example, primary key is a composite key. That means I have a combination of key which acts as a primary key. Order number plus item number together form the primary key in this example. That is why even if I remove one of them, that is either I remove item number or I try to remove order number, I will not be able to identify the records uniquely. That is why this two together is called as a minimal super key. Am I clear? So you have to go on removing the attributes from your default super key. You come to a point where if I remove further any attributes, I will not be able to identify the records uniquely. Then that is the point I stop. I call it as a minimal super key. Generally, it is the primary key, which you call it as the minimal super key. I hope this is clear. Any doubts in this concept of, any doubts in this concept of minimal super key? Super key, the default super key and the minimal super key. It's very, very important concept to know the difference. If there are no questions, let me move further. Next we come to, I have already discussed all this. We'll again take it up. Next we come to what is called a candidate key. Candidate keys are what? I told you an example. We considered a couple of examples. That is, in a particular table, if I have more than one attribute which can act as a primary key. I just don't have one attribute which will act as primary key. I have more than one attribute which can act as a primary key. Then all such keys I will call it as, all such attributes I will call it as candidate keys. Okay. Candidate key is different. Composite primary key is different. Composite primary key means what? I am not able to identify any attribute as a primary key. I have to combine it with one more attribute. One or combination of two attributes or three attributes form the primary key. That is a composite primary key. Whereas candidate key means every more than one attribute can act as a primary key. I gave an example of a citizen of India table. Okay, citizen is an entity. What are the attributes of this citizen? Aadhaar number is an attribute, name is an attribute, voter ID is an attribute. Okay, of course, name, phone number, address, all these are attributes. Now, when I take citizen as an entity and I create a table with these attributes, what is the primary key there? I can take voter ID also as a primary key. Voter ID can act as a primary key. Aadhaar number also can act as a primary key. Correct? So that means what? I have two attributes which can act as a primary key. Either I can take voter ID or I can take Aadhaar number. In such a case, both this voter ID and Aadhaar number together, both are called as candidate keys. Each one of them is a candidate key. Okay, see, look at here. Candidate keys are those key attributes which can uniquely identify the tuples separately. So using Aadhaar number also, I can identify each citizen. Using voter ID also, I can identify each citizen. So I can take any one of them as a primary key. So what is the properties that the candidate key should satisfy? Obviously, it should be a uniqueness property. No two distinct tuples can have the same value. Obviously, when I say Aadhaar number and voter ID, they should be unique for every citizen of India. Then, minimality property means what? None of the attributes of the key can be discarded without destroying the uniqueness property. You cannot simply say, okay, you cannot discard it without destroying the, that is in case of composite key. Let us not worry here in case of candidate keys. Okay, so candidate key means more than one attribute has the capability to act as a primary key. We will designate one of them. Designate means we will select one of them as a primary key. The rest can be considered as alternate key or secondary keys. So primary key is a candidate key that is chosen to identify the tuples. That's what I said. I will select one of them. Either I will select voter ID as a primary key in my table, or I can select Aadhaar number as a primary key in my table. I can choose any one of them. Look at this point, very important. Only one candidate key can be chosen as a primary key. I cannot have two primary keys, obviously. It should be underlined. So we know that we have to underline the primary keys. Value of primary key cannot be null. Value, once I have selected which should be the primary key, that cannot be null. But other keys, suppose I have taken voter ID as a primary key. Aadhaar number, I can leave it as null because I have not taken it as primary key, so that's okay. But if I have taken Aadhaar number as primary key, then I cannot leave it null. I can leave voter ID as null. Okay, as if I don't have any value or something like that. So that is what you call it as a candidate keys. See, look at this table. I don't know if it's very clear to you. I think it is not clear. Anyway, that's okay. So look at this relation. What do we have here? Car. Car is one. Car is the name of the table. What are the attributes? I have license number as one attribute. Engine serial number as one attribute. Make, model, and year are the other three attributes. Now this license number as well as this engine serial number, both can act as primary key. Either I can take license number as a primary key, or I can take engine serial number as a primary key. If you see that values are very unique, both the values are unique for all the records. So these two together, we call it as candidate keys. See, look at here. Car relation has two candidate keys. Which are candidate keys here? License number and engine serial number. Because both can act as primary key. But we have underlined only license number. Observe that. We have not underlined engine serial number. So only license number will act as primary key, whereas the other one will be taken as a alternate key. Right? That's about candidate keys. Can you give me some examples? Can you give me other examples of candidate keys? Where can you give me an example of a table where two keys can act as primary key, or two or more attributes can act as primary key? Any example?
Ma'am, like the last one, order number and item number. Last example.
Yeah. Okay. There, I don't know how they have taken it. Okay, we can consider that. Fine. Any other example? Student table, suppose you take. Suppose we have USN and we also have something called, let us say, as admission number. Okay. Or let us say, not admission number. Let's say we have taken USN as one attribute. We have taken library ID as one attribute. Okay. So when you take library, all of you are given a 4-digit unique library ID. That's unique for all of you. You can two students cannot have the same library ID, right? So in that case, what happens? USN also can act as a primary key. This library ID also can act as a primary key. So these two are called as candidate keys. But only one of them we will select it as primary key and underline it in the schema diagram or the ER diagram, right? So we take USN as the primary key. That's another example for candidate keys. Any other example?
Ma'am, USN and mail ID.
Mail ID. Yes, mail ID also can be taken. Right. Any other example? Right. Let's continue. So what are next we come to? What are null constraints? Now, some of the attributes can be restricted not to allow null values. Not null constraint. There is a constraint called as not null. Not null constraint can be declared. See, when you declare a variable, when you declare an attribute as a primary key, by default it will apply the not null constraint. That means a primary key cannot take any null values. Now, apart from this, I can make any other attribute as not null. Okay, so primary key, it need not primary key. When I declare a primary key, when I say USN is a primary key, obviously USN will not accept any null value. Not null constraint is automatically applied to the USN. But apart from that, so that's a primary key. But apart from the primary key, I also want some other attribute not to accept any null value. It's not a primary key, but I still don't want that attribute to accept a null value. For example, name of the student. In the student table, we have name as an attribute. Okay, I don't want, name is not a primary key. So it can accept null, right? Generally, it can accept null. So if I leave it blank, no error, it will show. But as a faculty, I don't want the student name to be null there. The student name has to be entered. So what will I do? I will declare a not null constraint for the attribute name. That means name cannot accept a null value. You have to enter some value for name. That is what you call it as a not null constraint. Primary keys, automatically not null constraint will be applied. Once moment you declare it as a primary key, that's all. It will take it as not null and unique. Both these constraints will be applied automatically. Not null and unique, because it should be unique, it should not be null. Both these will be applied automatically. But apart from the primary key, if you want some attributes not to take null values, then I can always declare it as not null. Voter ID, voter entity, suppose I'm developing an election database, let us say. Voter is the entity. So voter has a age. I don't want that age to be null because I need to know what is the age of every voter, correct? So I may declare not null for the voter's age. That is also possible. So whenever you want to make an attribute other than the primary key not to accept null value, then you declare it as not null. Okay. So next we move, this not null I will show you in the lab also. Okay, we will be doing some examples wherein we will be trying to show not null constraint. How to declare it, I will show you in the lab, right? As we go ahead with the examples and with our lab exercise, we'll come across so many new things. So as and when we do it, I will tell you. Next, relational database schema. So we've already seen all this. Just again another quick recap. So what is the name? S is the name of the database here. S is a set of relation schema that belong to the same database. Now, when I say student, or let us say university database, database is the university. What are the relations there? Student is a relation. Relation means what? Table. Relation, student is a table, faculty is a table, department is a table, course is a table, then examination is a table, something like this. All this table together is your database called university. So when I say yes is the name of the database, so here university is the name of the database. Yes, it is a collection of so many relations. Relations means tables. Okay, so student is one table, faculty is another table, department is one table. All these tables put together becomes my database. See here, a relational database contains many relations which may have certain relationships and integrity constraints. Many relations means relations are nothing but tables. Now, look at this example which we have been discussing all the time. Company database. So company is a database. What is company made up of? It is made up of number of tables. Which are the tables? Employee is a table, department is a table, project is a table, department location is a table, dependent is a table, works on is a table. These are all tables which make up the company database. Yes is the database here. Yes is a database. So map that yes to your company. What is R1, R2, Rn? Different relations. Relations are nothing but your tables. Employee is a relation, department is a relation, and so on. Right? That is what you call it as a relational database schema. See, this whole thing is nothing but a schema of the database. So this whole thing, because these are all different tables which make up your database called as company. Company is a name of the database. Now that database contains a collection of tables or collection of relations. These are all the relations. We have written the schema of each of the relation. All this collection together, we call it as a schema of the database, relational schema of the database. Right? What is a relational database state? See, whenever we talk about state, okay, state is always a collection of relations states. That means in each table, how many records do you have? That is nothing but relation state. Like that, in every table, I have certain records. Collection of all that is nothing but your database state. You know what is the relation table, state of a table. What is the state of the table? Initially, it is empty. Then you start putting in, inserting records. Suppose I enter 5 records in student table, that becomes a state of the student table. Like that, for every table or for every relation, there is a state because there are certain records. All these states together, you call it as a database state. See here, we have so you may not be able to see the values. That's okay. I'm not bothered about that. See, you have this employee table. The employee table has all these records. Then you have department location, it has all these records. You have the table department, it has all these records, some 3 records it has. You have works on is a table, it has got some lot of records here. Project is a table, it has got a lot of records here. Then what is this? Dependent also has certain records here. What is the state of employee table? State of employee table is nothing but collection of these records of this employee. Are you seeing? I'm marking that. This collection of this records of these employees is nothing but state of the employee table. Department, you have 3 departments. So collection of these 3 departments is nothing but the state of the department table. Like that, collection of the records, you call it as state of the table. Collection of all this together, all this whole thing together, I call it as the state of the relational database corresponding to this company database or company scheme, right? Yeah, to continue with certain more properties, 2 relations have one or more same attributes having same domain. That is possible. That means 2 different tables can have the same attribute name. Student table can have an attribute name called as age. Faculty table also can have the same attribute called as age. That means 2 different tables can have same attribute name with the same domain also. No problem. All right. Titles for such attributes may be same, may be different. You may give a different name for age, or you may give the same name in both the tables. Both are correct. For example, look here, you have named D number in employee table, you have named it as DNO, whereas in department table, you have named it as D number. Again, in project table, you have named it as DNum. All are same data only you are referring to, but you are given different names. It's all fine. See here, 2 relations. 2 relations means 2 tables may have different attributes with same names. Okay. Name is same in employee, you may have it in name in department, you have name in project. Everything is a different name, but the attribute name is the same. You can have the same attribute name in more than one table. That is allowed. Next we move on to a very important concept called as entity integrity constraints. Let me check with you all. You have any questions at this point of time? Any of you till here, whatever we discussed? You want to repeat something, you have some doubts, you can ask me before I go further. No questions, no doubts. Right, let me continue. Entity integrity constraints. Now, always this entity integrity constraints are specified on individual tables. Okay, you are going to define those constraints on the tables, not on the database. It is on the table. Okay, entity integrity means generally it is nothing but your primary key constraint. So primary key constraint is what? It cannot have null values. It cannot have any duplicate values. These are what your entity integrity. And look at here. Key constraints and entity integrity constraints are always specified on individual relations. That means it is applicable only applicable only to that particular table. So when I say employee is a in the employee table, when I say employee ID is a primary key, it is applied on that particular table. Okay, see, other attributes which we discussed just now, other attributes of R may be constrained to disallow null values, even though they are not members of the primary key. That's what I said. I want the name of the student should not take null value. I can make that name of the student, I can specify a not null constraint for that attribute alone, though it is not a primary key. When I declare something as a primary key, automatically it will apply not null and unique constraint. Both will be applied on that attribute. But apart from primary key also, I can declare some variables, certain constraints on certain attributes, even though they are not primary key. That is one example is your not null. Okay, that is your entity integrity constraints, wherein generally we speak of the primary key constraints or the constraints which you generally apply on the individual tables. You call them as entity because you are applying on that entity. Entity means what? You are converting an entity into a relation or a table. So whatever you are applying on that particular table, that particular relation, you call it as entity integrity constraint. Next important thing is referential integrity constraint. Now this referential integrity constraint is nothing but the foreign key. Okay, the foreign key is what you call it as referential integrity constraint. When this foreign key comes, when do we come across foreign key? When you want to relate two different tables. That is when you come across this foreign key. See here, referential integrity constraint. It is specified between two relations. When these two relations will come, two relations means two tables. You are trying to build a relationship between the two relations or build an association between the two tables. You are trying to connect two tables or you are trying to associate two tables, relate two tables, however you want, you can say. So whenever there is going to be a relationship between the two tables, then comes your foreign key, or foreign key is otherwise called your referential integrity constraint. Primary key is also nothing but your entity integrity constraint. Foreign key is nothing but your referential integrity constraint. Okay, don't get confused. Yes, foreign key, we have already seen and executed some queries using your foreign key. We have also seen how to declare foreign key, is it not? Student borrows books, so student and book, we have tried to relate it, correct? So in the student, in the book table, we have created USN is one attribute. So in the book table, what happens? USN becomes a foreign key in the book table. It is a primary key in the student. So like that, we have seen several examples. Book and author, right? Author writes book. How did we relate book and author? Using author ID or book ID, both maybe. So book ID became foreign key in author, author ID became a foreign key in book. So that's how you try to relate these two tables. I'm giving example of lab, so because we have done it now, so you will be able to relate it fast. That's why you can take any example. See here, foreign key is a column or a set of column in one table that refers to a column or a set of column in another table. Okay, so these two tables, that is very important, is called what? One table is called as a referencing table. The other one is called as a referenced table. So D number of employee refers to D number of department. This D number in the department is your D number in the department is the primary key, correct? Whereas when it comes into your employee table, this becomes your foreign key, because you are trying to relate employee and department. So this D number comes as a foreign key into your employee. An attribute in a relation R1 is a foreign key of R1 that references the primary key of R2. Same thing, it's all the same. See here. And this also we have seen in our schema diagram when we wrote, how do you relate it, correct? Your arrow should always, arrowhead should always point to where your primary key is there, not where the foreign key is there. Okay, so this is how you show a relationship in the schema diagram. So this D number is acting as a foreign key. Where is that D number referring to? It is referring to the D number in the department. That is the original primary key there. D and O is a foreign key in the employee. So how should you show the mark? Your arrow should always point to the primary key. It should not point to the foreign key. Foreign key can also refer to its own relation. We have seen this in case of recursive relation. Same table is participating in that relation as two different roles, supervisor and supervisee. We saw that. So that is why what we have done, SSN is a primary key. We will include one more key, super SSN, which acts as a foreign key in the same table. That is also possible. So how do you connect this? Look at the way we are connected. It points, arrowhead is here. It points to the primary key. Yeah, this is an important thing that you should understand. Which is the referencing table and which is the referenced table? That's very important. Wherever your foreign key is there, that table is called as a referencing table. Okay? Whichever table contains your primary key, that is the referenced table. Here. This employee is a referencing because D number is a foreign key here. Where does it get referenced to? It gets referenced to the department. So department is called as a referenced table. This is the referencing. Employee is a referencing. Wherever you have the foreign key, that table is a referencing table. Wherever you have the primary key, that is a referenced table because you are referencing that particular table. Okay. Yeah, this is all same only again. Yeah, this is an important point. However, null is possible in foreign key. In the last class, I think somebody asked me, can foreign key take a null value? Yes, foreign key can take a null value. Primary key cannot take. Right? This is all more information on foreign key again. Referential integrity constraint is nothing but your foreign key. They arise. Why do you need a foreign key? Because you have to have there are some relationship among the entities. Student borrows books means you are trying to relate these two entities, the student and books. So that is where your foreign key comes into picture. If there is no relationship between two entities or two tables, then there is no need of any foreign key at all. Okay. So referential integrity constraint is specified between two relations. Obviously, it is between two to maintain the consistency among the tuples. So whatever values you are entering in the primary key, those values only you can enter in the foreign key column also. You cannot have anything other than that. You can have null value, but you cannot have any other extra values. Okay. If USN is a primary key, S1, S2, S3, S4. Now this USN acts as a foreign key in your book table. There also your USN comes. So your USN there should take only one of those values, S1 or S2 or S3 or S4, or it can be null. But you cannot add S5. That becomes wrong. So that means what? We are trying to maintain the consistency. That's all. Look at that. Values of the foreign key can be null. If it is not null, what it should do? It should match with the primary key value. It has to match. That is what I told now. When I say S1, S2, S3, S4 are the only 4 students that I have in my student table. In the book table also, I should have only those 4 values. Or I can have null. But I cannot have S5, I cannot have S6 and so on. Foreign key should always take one of the values that you have entered as your primary key. It cannot take any other value. If you do that, if you try to enter something which is not there in the primary key or not there as part of the primary key value, then it will show parent key constraint violated, something like that it will show. You can make out. You can enter and see what error it shows. See, the column in the referencing table must be the primary key in the referential table. Okay. It is all the same. Look at this. The referential integrity can be displayed. How do you display it? As a directed arc from relation in which there is a foreign key to the relation in which it is a primary key. So your arrowhead should always be towards the primary key. Look at that. This is a very good example of our company database wherein we have shown all the tables, the schema diagram along with the relationship, how they are related. This we did for our lab exercise also. I hope you all remember this. So in the company database, what are the tables that you have? You have the employee table, we have the department table, we have the department locations, and then we have project table, we have works on table, and we have the dependent table. Look at the way they have connected it. D number is a primary key in the department table. Department location, it acts as a foreign key. So look at the arrowhead. D number acts as a foreign key in project table. Look at the arrow there. Right? So that is how you try to give. D number is a foreign key in employee. See, so the arrow should come from employee. It should come to D number of department. Look at the arrowhead here. That's how you write it. Further examples in our lab exercise also, we'll be writing all these things. So it will be more practice for all of you. Okay. So any questions? Any questions I would like to take? Any doubts? Any questions so far? All this we have seen, it's more of a kind of recap again. The lab also we saw. Any questions, please? Any doubts? Are you all there?
Yes, ma'am.
I see. Okay, let me proceed further. Next type of constraint is semantic integrity constraint. We saw entity integrity, primary key and all other things. Then we saw referential integrity. Now we come to semantic integrity constraints. What is the semantic integrity constraint? These are nothing but certain business rules which I want to enforce. Okay. For example, salary of an employee should not exceed 10 lakhs. So all the salaries should be within 10 lakh only. That is a constraint that I am trying to impose. That means what? Whenever I am trying to declare the salary as an attribute, I will put a constraint there where salary greater than or less than or equal to 10 lakh it should be. And then maximum number of hours per employee for all projects she or he works on should be 56 hours per week. If you remember works on, there was one relationship which had an attribute called as number of hours. See here, it should be here somewhere. Yeah, look at that. You have an hours. So when I declare this particular attribute, I will try to declare a constraint that it should not be more than or it should be equal to 56 hours per week somewhere. So these are all nothing but your business constraints or business rules that you should follow. For example, I said voter cannot be less than 18 years of age. That is again a semantic integrity constraint that I am trying to apply on the voter. For me, when I try to recruit students for MCA, they all should be between, let us say, 21 to 24 only age. So that's again a constraint. I don't want somebody who is aged 40 years to come into MCA. Nor I don't want someone who is just 10 years old to come into MCA. So, okay. So the age should be between 22 to 24 or 20 to 24, whatever. So that's again a constraint that I am trying to apply. These are all called as semantic integrity constraints. Okay. What are the other constraints that you have? State constraints. All the above constraints responsible for the valid state of the database. State constraint means any constraint, whenever you are declaring a constraint, it should be valid for all the records that you enter. When I say salary cannot exceed 10 lakh, for all the records that I'm entering or for all the employee details I'm going to enter, for every employee, this particular constraint should be satisfied. It should be valid. That is what that means. It should be valid for the entire state. Means what? What is state? Collection of all the records is a state. So for all the records, this particular constraint has to be satisfied. That is what. So any constraint that you apply should be applied for all the records that you enter. You cannot have, okay, this record for 10 lakh, another record 20 lakh. You can't do that. That is why we said all the above constraint, whatever we have seen so far, is all responsible for the valid state of the database. Transition constraints can be defined to deal with state changes enforced by the application programs by triggers. Now, what is a trigger? What is how can you change, create a change in the state? All this we'll see when we come to when we go further. Okay, right now I don't want to tell you what is a trigger. We'll see later. We have a chapter on trigger. We also have a lab exercise on triggers. So that time I will let you. Okay. Now before I go into that, any questions so far? Any doubts? I keep stopping then and there and asking you all, because if I go on doing, then you may not be able to follow something. You can stop me. If you are not stopping, I'll stop and ask you. Any doubts? Any questions so far?
Ma'am, can you repeat transition constraints?
That's all. Transition constraint is all implemented using a concept called as triggers. Okay. I don't want to tell what is triggers and all. We have a complete unit on triggers. We also have a lab exercise on triggers. So that time I will explain in detail. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now, don't bother about it. All right. So let's move further. Okay. What are the different operations that can be performed? And more than operations, we'll be seeing how you can violate the constraints. What are the different ways in which you can violate the constraint? Means you have put some constraints and you are not trying to follow that. What will happen? Will the database accept it, or what error it will show? These are the things that we are going to see. Okay. Now, operations can be categorized into retrievals and updates. I told you the other day already. Can anybody tell me now what is a retrieval and what is an update? Anyone? What is a retrieval and what is an update? Operations can always be classified into two different things. One is a retrieval, one is an update. What's the difference?
Ma'am, retrieval means only we will get the information, and update means we are changing the data.
Yes. I told you the other day, when I say retrieval, whatever is there in the database, I am trying to pull out that information. That is called as retrieval. Means the database will not undergo any change. For example, I will give you student table we have created. USN is there, name is there, date of birth is there, age is there, semester is there, everything is there, address is there in that. I have already entered all the details of 58 students in that. All you students, I have entered the details. Retrieval means having entered all these 58 data, I want to retrieve, pull out some information out of that. Let us say I gave the same example. I say how many students are born in the month of May. This is the information I want. Because I have date of birth there, I can always identify who are the students who are born in the month of May. I will write a query and I will retrieve that. Means I will try to pull out that information. When I try to pull out that information, is the database undergoing some change? No. I will simply find out who are all born in the month of May. That's all. For that matter, database is not going to undergo any change at all. So retrieval means we try to find out or try to extract some information from the existing database, which will not, consider, or which will not allow the database values will never get changed for that matter. That is called as retrieval. When I say transactions or when I say updations, that is nothing but it will undergo some kind of changes. I told you transaction. Transaction means what? I try to take out some data, but when I try to pull that information, database will also get changed. Value will also get changed. That is a transaction. That is an update. Okay. For example, you try to withdraw money from your bank. You go to ATM and withdraw money. Suppose I withdraw 1,000 rupees. Will the database values remain the same? No. Somewhere, some account will get debited or got debited by 1,000 rupees. Some account will get updated or credited by 1,000 rupees. That means there is a change in the values in the database. That is called as an update or a transaction. Please remember this difference is very important. Retrieval means you are only pulling out the data. Database will not undergo any changes. Values will not change there. Okay. Now, this update operations, as I said, you can retrieve it in, categorize it into retrievals and updates. Now, we will not go into the retrieval much because we are only pulling out the data there. Update. Update operations are what? We are going to see these three operations. Inserting a tuple will update your database. That means it is going to cause some changes. Delete a tuple will also cause some changes. Modifying a record will also cause some changes. Right? Yes. Now, whenever you try to do updations, updation means what? You can either insert, you can either delete, you can modify. These are all updations only. Together they are called. Whenever you try to update, integrity constraint should not be violated. Integrity constraint means what? You have entity integrity constraint, semantic integrity constraint, referential integrity constraints. All these are integrity constraints. Primary key should not be violated. Foreign key should not be violated. Business rules should not be violated. Keeping that in mind only, you should update. You cannot simply insert a record, say, giving the same USN once again. You cannot add a new record. Let's say a new student has joined your class. You want to add that record. So when I add that record, obviously USN has to be a new USN. It should be a unique one. I cannot say, okay, again I will enter S1. It will violate your constraint. Several update operations may have to be grouped together. That's okay. We'll see that. Now, when you try to do some updations, certain updates will happen automatically. Even then, you may have to maintain the integrity constraint. That's very important. See, one important thing is whenever you try to update, your constraints should not be violated. That's all. Okay. What are the possible violations that can happen? That is what we are going to discuss. When I try to do the insert operation, insert can violate these four constraints. Domain constraint can get violated, key constraints can get violated, entity constraints, or your referential integrity constraints. Domain constraint means what? You are violating the domain constraint here. We are only talking of how insertion can be violated or what sort of violation can be caused. Domain constraint violation means what? If you are trying to enter a value which does not belong to the appropriate domain, as I told you already, my students' age should be from 21 to 24 only, MCA students. Now a new student comes. Suppose I enter that value of that age of that student as 40. That means I am violating that rule. I should not violate. Key constraint, as I told you, value of primary key of the new tuple is already existing in another tuple of the relation. Then that means you are violating. New student joins in, you should give a new USN. You cannot enter the same USN which is already there, right? That means you are violating the constraint. Then other thing is what? If value of primary key of the new tuple is null, that is also violation only. You give a new value. You cannot enter something which is already there, or you cannot leave it blank because it's a primary key, right? Referential integrity, foreign key. Value of foreign key refers to a tuple that does not exist. All these are nothing but your violations that can happen during your insertion, right? Attribute, you are not maintaining the correct range of values to enter, right? Primary key, you are not maintaining the uniqueness, or you are not maintaining the not null constraint. Your foreign key does not contain that value at all, but you are trying to refer that as a foreign key. All these are violations that can happen when you try to insert. Let's take an example, simple example. Look at that. We have here two tables. Department is one table, employee is another table. Okay. Now, in the department table, we have department number as the primary key. We have underlined that. And then we have department name. So we have entered 2 records here. One is MCA, 2 is MBA. Simple. I have kept the tables very simple. Next, I come to employee table. What we have done? enum is a primary key there. We have ename, we have salary, we have D number. This D number is what? It is a foreign key, which is referring to what? Referring to our primary key in the department table, right? So when I enter now, how many departments we have? We will just have 1 and 2. So here also I should have 1 and 2 only. I cannot have anything other than that, correct? So here in employee, I have entered 2 tables, E001, E002, some name and salary, and they belong to department 1 and 2. Now, look at that. Insert into employee. I'm showing an example for these 4 different types of violations. Okay, using these 2 tables. Now, example for domain constraint violation. What I said, insert into employee values. I'm going to insert a new employee. So what am I doing? E003, Tina, all that, ASFDF 1. Okay. Now, I am trying to enter this value. Why do you think it is not accepted? It is not accepted. It's a violation. Why do you think it's a violation? Can anyone tell me? In this table, in this employee table, when I try to enter E003 Tina ASFDF 1, why is it a violation?
1 is already existing, that's why, ma'am.
No, 1 can exist.
Because there's an extra column.
No extra columns are there. No extra columns. E number, E name, salary, department. What are we doing? Instead of salary, yes, salary. Instead of salary, I should be entering some kind of a numeric value. But instead what I did, instead of entering some numeric value, I'm trying to enter some characters, which means it's a domain constraint violation. Domain constraint here is what? Salary should accept only numeric values. That's a domain constraint. Instead of that, I'm trying to enter some string. That is why it is not accepted. So that is an example for your domain constraint violation. Come to the next one. Key constraint. Insert into employee values E001 Tina 31,001. It is still not accepted. Why? Why am I not able to enter that Tina details into the employee table? Anyone?
Not because E001 already exists.
Key constraint violation. Correct. E001 is a primary key. This value of E001 is already existing for some other employee. So I should give a new value there. Instead, I'm giving the same value. That is why it is not accepted. It is a key constraint violation. You are violating the primary key constraint. Okay. Next. Entity constraint violation. Insert into employee values. Look at that. This is also not accepted.
Because it is null, no, ma'am.
It is null. Primary key is null here. You cannot have duplicate values also. You cannot have null values also. Both these are constraint violations. Next. Referential integrity constraint, how it can be violated, let us see. Insert into employee values again. You have given this value. What is happening here now? Why it is not accepted?
3 is not there, ma'am.
3 is not there in the department table. There are only 2 departments, 1 and 2. You cannot include something which does not exist. Here I told you if the value of the foreign key refers to a tuple that does not exist. 3 doesn't exist, so you cannot enter. You should enter either 1 or 2, that's all. So that is also not accepted. Come to the last one. Insert into employee value E003 Tina 31,001. This is accepted because it is not violating any of the constraints. So these are the 4 different constraints that can be violated, different ways in which you can violate the constraints. Next, delete operation. So when I do delete operation, what can be violated? Delete can violate only foreign key constraints, nothing else. You can simply delete any row which is not associated with any other table. You can delete off. But if it is associated with some other table using a foreign key concept, then it is not easy to delete. It will violate. If the tuple being deleted is referenced by the foreign key from other relations table tuples, then you cannot delete it. See, this will show error. Delete from department where D name is MBA. It is not accepted. Why it is not accepted? Simply I cannot delete this. Delete from department where department name is MBA. This should get deleted, this row. But it's not getting deleted. Why? Because we have referenced that here. And there are employees who are there in that particular department. What will happen to them? Simply I cannot delete this department, is it not? That is why. It is a referential integrity constraint violation. First, you have to delete this employee. There should be no employee belonging to department number 2. Then you can come back and delete this parent table. Otherwise, it is not possible. That's the only constraint that can get violated when you are doing a delete operation. When you are doing insertion operation, there are 4 constraints, 4 types of constraints that are getting violated. But when you go for a delete operation, this is the only constraint which will get violated. Delete from department where department name is MBA. You cannot, otherwise it is right. Had I not related this here, had I not brought department number here, then I can delete that. That statement is absolutely correct. But since this department number is acting as a foreign key in the employee table, I cannot delete this. First, I have to delete this E002. Then I can delete that. Then no problem. All right. See, due to delete operation violation, 3 options are possible. Reject the deletion. Reject the deletion. That means I don't want to delete. I'll simply keep quiet. Cascade deletion. That's what I told you. Cascade deletion means what? If I want to delete this MBA from the department table, I should first delete E002 from the employee table, then come back to department and delete. That is your cascading effect. Cascading, where all I have referred to department, wherever this 2 comes, I have to delete all those records, then come here, delete. That is your cascading effect. First is what? Reject the deletion. Very simple. I don't want to delete. Okay, leave. Second is you cascade it. Third, modify the referencing attribute value. Make it as null. Then you can delete. Or put some other value. I will shift this employee E002 to department number 1. That is MCA department. Then yes, I can delete this. Or I will make this value as null. Then also I can delete. Okay. Cascade, as I told you already, delete from department where D name is MBA. Delete the tuples from department and employee also wherever yes, this is satisfied. Then only I can delete. Or delete the tuples from department where D name is MBA and tuples from employee will be updated to null. Okay, if that is feasible, then that can be done. So these are your constraints that can get violated when you want to do a deletion operation. We saw how what constraints can get violated when we saw an insertion. What constraints can get violated when you do a delete. That's why I took this very simple example and I am showing. Going further also, for all the other operations that we'll be learning, I'll be making simple examples like this. Okay, I'm not going to take from the textbook and paste it here. That is not my intention at all. So I'll make my own simple examples and I will show it to you. Okay, update. There are 3 types of operations I said: insertion, deletion, updation. Updation means modify. If I want to modify, then what are the possible constraints that can get violated? Okay, updating an attribute other than primary key or foreign key. What are the constraints that will get violated? Only the domain constraint will get violated. Suppose I want to change the age. Okay, so I should see to it that the domain constraint is not violated. That means 21 to 24. I should keep track of that alone. That's all. Because it is neither a primary key nor a foreign key, no problem for me. So just I have to check to confirm that the new value is of the correct data and domain. That's all. If I am trying to modify a primary key, How do I modify? Deleting one tuple, inserting a new tuple. So all this I have to take care of, whatever we have seen. Constraint violation due to delete, because you are deleting one tuple. Constraint violation due to insert, because you are inserting a new. If it is a primary, if you are modifying a foreign key, then the new value should refer to an existing tuple in the reference relation. That means if you are trying to modify it, it should always be there in your primary, in the primary table or your parent table. Otherwise, you cannot enter. Same thing what we saw so far. Transaction concepts, we will see it later because it is there as one unit in the last unit. So that time I will see. Each transaction should leave the database in a consistent database. Means you debit it and you don't credit, then that is wrong. Either you do the debit and the credit or don't do anything. That is your consistent database. Okay. So what is a transaction? It involves reading from the database as well as doing insertion, deletion, modification, everything together. You call it as a transaction, as I told. Whereas retrieval is not all this. Retrieval will not do anything. All this it will not do. It will simply read from the database. That's all. It will only read from the database. That's it. That is a retrieval. Whereas when you talk of transaction, it will do all these operations. It will insert, deletion, modification, everything. Database values will get changed. That is your transaction. Right? Any doubts? No questions at all. And your attendance, Anaga?
Yes, ma'am.
Abhilash?
Yes, ma'am.
Akhil?
Yes, ma'am.
Akrut?
Yes, ma'am.
Anusha? Aravind?
Present, ma'am.
Arifullah?
Yes, ma'am.
Janaka?
Present, ma'am.
Banu?
Yes, ma'am.
Bhargav?
Yes, ma'am.
Rahmatullah? Okay. Chaitra?
Present, ma'am.
Chandana?
Present, ma'am.
Karan?
Yes, ma'am.
Darshan?
Present, ma'am.
Dakshayani?
Present, ma'am.
Diksha? Diksha is not there. Okay. Kishan?
Present, ma'am.
Harshit?
Present, ma'am.
Harshit, you are absent for so many classes already. Your attendance is only 50%. Hemalata?
Present, ma'am.
Uma?
Present, ma'am.
Jayanth? Jayanth is not there. Okay. Divya?
Yes, ma'am.
Kaushik?
Present, ma'am.
Lakshmi?
Present, ma'am.
Lavanya?
Present, ma'am. Mic issue, both of them.
Manish?
Present, ma'am.
Manoj?
Present, ma'am.
Mohit? Naval?
Yes, present, ma'am.
Yes, yes. Naval?
Yes, ma'am.
Navya? Nikhil?
Present, ma'am.
Nandra?
Present, ma'am.
Pavan?
Present, ma'am.
Pooja?
Present, ma'am.
Purnima?
Yes, ma'am.
Raman?
Yes, ma'am.
Rashmi?
Yes, ma'am.
Rupak?
Yes, ma'am.
Sai Kumar?
Yeah.
Samir?
Putting
Actually-
chat, ma'am.
ಇದು actually ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ.
Samir? Santosh is present. Shadab?
Present, ma'am.
Karan?
Madam, Santosh present here.
Shashank?
Present, ma'am.
ನಾವು ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಕಡಿಯಲ್ಲ.
Present, ma'am.
Shivani?
Present, ma'am.
Soumya?
ಇದ್ರೆ ಮಾತಾಡಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬಿಡಿ ಬಟ್ ಯಾರು ಏನಂತ
Murthy?
ಮಾತಾಡೋದು ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಏನು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀವಿ
Vishnu?
ಇದು actually ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ.
Present, ma'am.
Sugandhini,
Present, ma'am.
Sushmita,
Present, ma'am.
yeah, Sushma,
Present, ma'am.
Sushmita, you,
Present, ma'am.
Tirtha,
Present, ma'am.
Tripti,
Present, ma'am.
Dashavina.
Present, ma'am. Present, ma'am.
Yeah. Who is present here? Ramtullah is present, Mohit is present, Santosh is present, Samir is present. Diksha is absent, Jayant is absent. Okay, the rest are present. All right, students, we'll see you in the next class. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.